Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my HOA neighbor Karen claimed my beautiful ancient oak tree blocked her view of the ocean and subsequently had it cut down. Here is what happens if you don't respect tree law. Let's dive right into the story. So the only two people that matter in this story are me and my neighbor Karen. I want to also point out that we are next to the ocean, but we don't have something like a beachfront property. There is basically a space between where our properties end and the beach begins. An area that I believe is owned by the city, but I just wanted to explain that I cannot just walk from my backyard into the ocean. In my backyard, I have a tree that has been there since well before I moved into the house. It is an oak tree that is estimated to be about 300 years old, which makes sense due to its size. It's easily the biggest tree on my property and probably everybody else's too. This thing just grew tall and sprouted huge branches with beautiful leaves. Now, Karen was the one person I met in my entire life that decided to have basically a full-on vendetta against a tree of all things. It's almost like the tree decided to exist for the express purpose of upsetting Karen. Now, you might wonder what a tree could even do that would hurt a person. It's just a tree after all, right? Well, according to Karen, the tree was blocking the best view of the ocean, and she demanded that I get rid of it. First of all, I did not really understand what she was talking about and asked if I could come and see what she was seeing when it came to the tree. She actually agreed, and I found myself in her backyard where she was pointing out the tree being in her way when she decided to sit down facing my property. Me, if you just faced straight out to the ocean, you would not even see the tree. I cannot understand how it is blocking your ocean view. Karen, well, I can always see it out of the corner of my eye. Besides, I should be able to look at the ocean from any spot in my backyard and see the ocean without obstruction. Now you march back to your house and get that eyesore cut down. Me, first of all, don't speak to me like a child being sent to their room. And second, I never said I was gonna get rid of the tree. I was considering things, but you can easily see the ocean without it. My advice is for you to just get over it, because I'm not cutting down my tree over this BS. Karen, I think you forgot that I'm on the HOA board, and as a member, you need to follow all of our bylaws or be subject to fines or even a lien on your house. Me, I'm warning you now not to threaten me. I promise, doing it again will not end well for you. I know that I'm part of the HOA, but I also know that the bylaw of no trees blocking the ocean view does not exist. Her threatening me awoke the fire inside of me, and now it was not going out until she learned to not try that crap with me. Others have attempted to intimidate me in the past, and it never worked out in their favor. I went home and calmed myself down and tried to drop the whole situation. It would not be worth going after her for saying something that nobody else heard unless she actually tried to find me. Since there was no bylaw against it, I knew I was not getting a letter in the mail from the HOA anytime soon. However, what I did not think would happen was that Karen would hire a company under false pretense to get the entire tree, stump, roots and all removed. Let me tell you, when I came home and saw all of that, I was furious and knew exactly who I needed to blame for the tree vanishing. Really, like she didn't think 3 days after complaining about it and threatening me, I would not think that she did it. At least she doesn't have the shame or guilt to even lie about it, because she had no qualms telling me that it was her. Hell, she almost seemed proud to tell me that she was the one that got the tree cut down and now had a much better view of the ocean. When I told her that I was taking her to court, she claimed that she would make it seem like my tree was against the HOA and I could not do anything about it. I was ready for that challenge and got a lawyer that was even able to do some backdating to find when the tree was planted, which is how I knew it was 300 years old. He also went through the HOA bylaws that of course were written to be too complicated for no reason. In there, he found the only time HOAs could remove a tree against the owner's wishes was when it was considered a danger. Examples being a tree that was dead or a tree that was already partially broken and would fall. These things all being determined by an official from a tree company. Then I was meant to get a week's notice of the work and be allowed to file to have the motion overturned. None of which happened, and all of which was brought up when we got to court. Karen was trying to claim the tree violated a different part of the bylaws. Ones that had to do with things being unsightly and damaging to the reputation of the neighborhood. However, these rules had to do with not leaving trash out on your yard or not walking around naked where kids could see you. She was really trying to compare my tree to these things, and the judge was not believing it for a second. The one thing I did learn was that there is a way for people to calculate the worth of a tree based on age, location, and tree type. I had no idea that our society had this kind of technology, and it was even crazier when the dollar amount dropped of what Karen was going to owe me. Props to the arborist, I guess. Not only was she dumbfounded that she lost, but even more when she found what the tree was worth and that she was supposed to give me $212,000. Not from the HOA money either, mind you, but from her own pocket, because she did this behind the HOA's back. She did not have the money, so the alternative was her ending up behind bars until she was able to make restitution. She had to end up selling her house in order to get the money to pay me back for my tree being torn down. Now that will definitely ruin her ocean view, needing to move into a new house because she had torn down my tree. And by the way, the HOA was no help to her either, and actually kicked her out of her position sometime between her tearing down the tree and the trial. They were probably scared about getting sued as well, so they dumped her on her own. I was able to plant another tree, but of course it won't look like the old one during my lifetime. It's kind of funny because when I had the tree, I would sometimes worry about it falling on my house or complain that it caused too much shade. Now that it doesn't exist anymore, I miss it, and I realized that the beauty of it was worth way more than any of the worries I had regarding it. At least I still have my nice view of the ocean, while Karen probably won't get another one in her lifetime. And here, ripe stars, obviously, since we are veterans of Reddit and have heard plenty of tree law stories, we would never make the same mistake as Karen. But then again, we would also not be entitled enough to have the audacity to cut someone else's tree down because it blocks our view or something. That is just what crazy people do. Either way, if you enjoyed the story and especially tree law, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and maybe even post a comment if you want to support me. Thank you so much, Disney and me very much appreciate it. The next one is an Am I the A-hole story. So I've been living and working on my parents' farm for over 2 decades. When my father retired 4 years ago, I was given full control of the farm and the property. Over time, due to the urbanization, our area has changed quite a bit. To describe the area, my family owns 4 large fields separated by a main road. To access the fields, my family has constructed 2 private roads on our side of a tree line that marks the property line. My problems, admittedly, were a long time coming with urbanization, as my farm became the border between the town and open farmland. On the other side of the tree/property line, there is new housing developments, and across the main road is a shopping center. With my town being a popular pit stop, the roads and businesses can get quite busy. The consequence of this is that people have been parking on my private road despite private property and no parking signs. This severely impedes farm operations because it would get to the point that farm equipment and trucks could not leave or enter either of my properties. In the past, I have called the police to deal with the trespassers, but their assistance is limited and slow. I've also tried installing gates but removed them after complaints from truck drivers and my farmhands. The cure to all of this came in the form of a contract I made with a local towing company. I installed their signs along with some security cameras. Whenever someone parks on my road, I can see it from my office and can call the company to have it towed at the owner's expense. This is what happened 4 days ago with a car that blocked a truck driver coming for a pickup. As per the contract, I called the company and within 45 minutes it was gone. I didn't know this at the time, but the owner was a lady who lived in the new development. Yesterday I got a visit from her as she came by to demand that I reimburse her. She said that since I didn't notify her or the development, it was an illegal tow. When she said that, I wound up snickering as I literally had signs warning against parking on the road. She wound up calling me an a-hole and threatening HOA involvement when I told her that I won't reimburse her and that she can leave. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that OP is the a-hole or not? A user in the comments said, not the a-hole, what's the HOA gonna do? They have literally no power over your property. People don't want consequences. You have signs, it's not your fault that she doesn't read. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, you've got signs up and she ignored them, most people don't consciously see them, and she got towed. What are you supposed to do? Give everyone a list of things they are not allowed to do on your property? What would she have done if you parked in her driveway? Let the HOA get involved. What are they gonna do? Send you a sternly worded letter? But seriously, I'm gonna tell my HOA on you is a new one. And well, ripe stars, depending on how criminal that HOA is, that is actually a scary intimidation tactic. Anyway, the next one is titled Karen sues me for not letting her trespass and use my jacuzzi. Pools. Up until my recent interaction with my neighbor, I had no idea they could cause such issues and drama. For some background, a couple of months ago, construction had finished in my backyard for a pool, which I had saved up for years to be able to afford. The whole time the pool was being built, my neighbor would not stop complaining about one thing or another, whether it was the noise or the appearance of my garden, which she could see from one of her upstairs windows. The noise complaints were, in my opinion, pretty reasonable, and I often had it over with some chocolate or wine to apologize once more before telling her when the construction would finally be done. Any of the work happened during the weekdays anyway, so more often than not she was at work. Other than her complaints and nasty looks towards my garden, she didn't really do anything major, and at the time I thought her feelings were valid. However, the issues arose when the pool had been completed. One afternoon after I got home, I went into my kitchen to make myself a nice cup of coffee, and just as I had finished making the brew, I looked outside and what I saw nearly made me drop it. My neighbor was sat lounging on a rubber ring in my pool. I was very confused and said, "Hello?" I asked, stepping outside. "Hey, the water is a little cold. Do you think you could boil up some water and pour it into the water?" she asked, not opening her eyes. "I'm sorry, why are you here?" I questioned, perplexed. "What do you mean why I'm here? Why else would I have allowed the construction of this pool if not to use it?" She chuckled slightly, and I got the sense that she really thought she was not doing anything wrong. "This is not a public pool. I paid for it myself and had it constructed in my garden because, well, I wanted my own personal pool," I stated, feeling almost silly for what I was saying, since it was such common sense. "Excuse me, I don't care if you paid for it or where it is. I had to deal with the noise and the mess for months. The least you could do is share." At this point her eyes had opened and she was staring at me over the rim of her sunglasses. "I'm fine letting you come over and use my pool on the odd occasion, but you cannot just come over whenever without asking. How did you even get in?" I was starting to get a little frustrated. "Ah gosh, fine, I will leave. But I'll be back." She got out of the pool and stormed out of my garden through my side gate. I guess that would be how she got in. For the next couple of weeks, this continued nearly every day. She was constantly around in my pool and I kept telling her to leave and stop just coming over whenever. Each time I was getting more and more aggressive with my words. I ended up deciding to go on Facebook about it and found a group that was literally about people trespassing on their property and what to do about it. I posted my situation and a bunch of people on there didn't believe me, to the point where I posted a picture of her in my pool and then the audio of me telling her to leave. I must add that at this point she also got her kids involved, who are both fairly young, and would come over to use the pool with her, leaving my garden in quite a state. One of the last times she came over to my pool, I warned her that if she did not stop I would have to call the police on her, which of course she did not like, but honestly, what else I could do? The following day she came around again. "I'm calling the cops if you don't leave in 5 minutes. I called from my top window. My neighbor decided to stick her middle finger up at me, and 5 minutes later she was still there, so I called the police. They came around and I told them about the whole situation. They came through to the back to see what she had to say. "It's not fair. I should get to enjoy the pool too," she whined, slapping the water with the palm of her hands. "Ma'am, we're going to have to ask you to leave. You cannot keep trespassing like this," one of the officers stated. "I've come over so many times, nobody has gotten hurt and nothing is broken, so what's the harm?" Well, that's not the point though. You have broken property laws and must leave. And considering your clear statement of guilt, your neighbor here can press charges if she wishes, the officer said, looking over at me as he finished his sentence. "What? Press charges?" my neighbor screeched as she clambered out of the pool and stormed home, mumbling incoherent things as she left. I decided, perhaps in the heat of the moment, that I would press charges on her. However, this may be not the best decision because of what happened the following days. I heard a knock on my door and opened it to reveal a man in a suit, and he handed me a file and told me that I'd been served and to read the file and call the number if I had any more questions. I went inside and quickly opened the file, skimming over the text as quickly as possible. I did not need to call the number because it didn't take me long to figure out what was happening. It turns out my neighbor had decided to sue me for defamation of character and emotional distress. It did not actually say that my neighbor was the one who filed the case with the court, but it was not hard to figure it out. The details on the file listed about a pool and how I had apparently invited her around to the pool and called the cops and lied that she was trespassing. I knew this would not be a difficult case to win because of how she admitted her guilt to the officers who were here the other day. And I was right. I did not bother hiring a lawyer and let the officers, who were the only witnesses, do the talking. It didn't take long for her to be embarrassed yet again. "You don't understand. She has embarrassed me and tarnished my name," my neighbor whined up to the stand. "Ma'am, you must not speak without being called upon. The only thing tarnishing your name will be any of this carry on." The judge spoke with authority, her eyes boring into my neighbor's and finally making her shut up. I had the option to countersue for the trespassing and the false allegations, but I had other plans, and besides she already got some community service hours for wasting court time. I did not want to go too over the top, but I figured I needed to do something to get revenge. A week after the events at the court, I invited a load of my friends around for a time that I knew my neighbor would be home. Along with their invite, I told them of my plan and they were all down, knowing it would be a good laugh. So, as they all came around, we went out back and started having a pool party. We kept the noise down just enough that my neighbor would not call the cops and complain, but also made sure that she was aware of the party. Just as I had expected, once she saw the party, she snuck into the garden and tried to blend in. I was waiting in the kitchen so she would relax. 10 minutes later, she was lounging in the pool and I made a signal for all of my friends to get out of the pool and stand by the side. I then turned off the music and came outside and watched as my neighbor opened her previously closed eyes, looking around her at all the faces just staring at her. Finally, her eyes settled at mine. I figured if she wanted to sue for embarrassment, then I would show her what it really felt like. She did not even say anything, just ran away with a red face. And from that day onwards, I did not have any issues with this woman. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. Neighbors destroyed my fence and moved property lines. They got me trespassed from my own land. At first, with my neighbor, I did not realize they were ever up to something. I just found him to be a little weird and eccentric. I basically ignored him when I could and let him make whatever weird choices that he wanted to make. The whole thing started when one day I woke up and went outside to see that some of my grass has been mowed. About 8 inches on my side of the fence that I am certain could only have happened at night. I did not know why my neighbor felt that mowing in the middle of the night and on my side of the property was the right decision to make. It did not hurt anybody though, so I just let it go and moved on with my life. I knew it was this neighbor because his grass was cut perfectly in line with what was cut from mine. To be honest, I just felt like my neighbor was crazy. Not the kind of bad crazy that you need to be scared of, but actually it turned out he was. He was the kind of crazy that does things like mowing their lawn in the middle of the night. Nothing was damaged either, so I actually forgot about it and went on a business trip. It was when I got back home that I realized something was seriously wrong. In my backyard I have a garden area and right behind it a little shed where I keep all my tools and things. It was also near where he mowed, and you can imagine I was glad none of the garden was damaged from him not seeing what he was doing. The thing was that once I got home, my garden and shed were gone. I don't mean that it was all dirt and destroyed pieces of wood, they had just seemed like they had never even been there. I put my stuff away and go outside to investigate what happened. It felt like there was a glitch in the matrix and maybe they never existed. A quick peek over the fence though let me know that I was right in the fact that they did exist. They were just now on my neighbor's side of the property. I also noticed marks where it was clear the fence was picked up and moved. So he basically moved the fence closer to me and in turn stole some of the land property that was mine. I was really angry and I wanted to just destroy the fence at this point. He moved it and now it was solely on my yard, so I could really do anything I wanted. The only issue was my tools were in my shed. I was not going to play whatever game he was trying to pull. I jumped the fence and got into my shed, which still had the padlock attached to it by the way. I don't know what he was thinking he could do with all the stuff locked in the shed and now the garden looking like it had not been watered the entire week. I have sprinklers set to water them, but he clearly doesn't. So I go into my shed to see what I can use to destroy the fence when I hear the sound of police sirens a minute later. Before I know it, I am being pulled out of the shed by police and put into handcuffs for trespassing. My neighbor is yelling how I am trying to steal from him and that he wants me off of his land. It is pure chaos for a while as I keep trying to speak to the police and explain that it is my property and not his. After about 10 minutes, I am brought back next door on the other side of the fence and let out of the handcuffs by the police officer. Officer, okay, so he did not want to press charges this time. If you are caught trespassing again though, there will be major problems. Me? I did not trespass though. That is my shed and my land. Officer, what are you talking about? It is clearly over there on his side of the yard. Me? If you take a close look, you can see that the fence has been moved recently. And I am sure that any surveyor would look at the land and see that my property extends out to where that shed is. All my tools are in it and even the key for it is in my pocket and upstairs in my closet. Officer, we need to get this all sorted out, but for right now, you cannot just go over there. We will look at the fence and if you can get a surveyor to say that it is yours and prove that the shed belongs to you, then that can be settled. This was not the answers I was looking for, but I understand where they were coming from. It did look like I was in his yard and now needed to get my stuff back. A mixture of evidence that shows the shed and garden being mine, as well as the fence not being on the property line like it should, was not the easier thing to get. A surveyor could not come out for an entire week and I had no idea how I was going to prove the shed was mine. It was not like I labeled my tools with my name or anything. What I could prove was that the shed was in that spot for a long time. If I went and found a map image of my house, you could clearly see the shed being in my backyard. So once I had all of that, I went to the town court to show them what had happened. In all this time, my neighbor still never showed any reasoning for doing all of this other than he could. I had all this evidence and the only thing he had was the fact that the grass was cut evenly. I did not just want my fence back though, and instead I wanted a restraining order against my neighbor. I even set up cameras that would let me know if he was wandering around my backyard at night again. I told them I did not want this man anywhere near me after trying to steal from me and almost having me falsely arrested. It was granted, and while he did not have to move, he was not allowed to go anywhere near my land. We live in the country, so space between the actual houses is pretty large. There would be no accidental reason that he would have to be so close to me because of how far apart our actual houses are. It is just that one small space by the fence that we share, and I wish I could find a way out of that too. I might build a new shed on the other side of my property just to make sure that I have no reason to be near this crazy guy again. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.